And last time we were talking about the Art Deco in Shivaji Park. But then there's a lot of Art Deco in South Bombay, especially Colaba and Apollo Bandar and all these areas. Can we talk about that?
So Colaba is really beautiful, and it's quite funny because Colaba, of course, has a lot of varied variety of architecture.
Yes.
And Art Deco, surprisingly, is also one of them. But if you see the main Colaba area, there's a lot of Indo-Saracenic. There's a lot, of course, the Taj is there.
Yes.
There's a lot of Gothic, which has the Royal Alfred Sailor's Home. And of course, Art Deco is quite important. But it's quite funny because the Colaba Art Deco came right at the end of the turn of Art Deco events. The reason is that the area where Art Deco was not really reclaimed as well as the area around the Taj. And the area around where the Art Deco was only a building dumping yard.
Yes.
So the builders were very wary of not having, it was going to be very expensive to pile that area to make a building there. And that's why that area was completely neglected. Yes. So I'm talking on the road beyond Radio Club.
Correct.
That's where the entire Colaba has the entire Art Deco. And that's when people suddenly realized that, if Art Deco is selling so well through Bombay, why not spend a little on the pile construction?
Absolutely.
And then make Art Deco buildings there.
Very true.
Why you had the later part of Art Deco of Colaba, or rather Bombay, come in that area, which is around 1936, which is quite later.
Much later, yes.
Yeah. But before that, of course, Colaba was much more than Art Deco.
Of course, there was David Sassoon in the 18th century,
Yes.
who built Sassoon Dock.
Absolutely.
And the Afghan church that came in there.
Absolutely. And it's quite funny because, Afghan church and the Agyaris that were there, all that were quite busy. But everyone was quite scared to go, of course, to the Agyari because you had to take the boat from Old Woman's Island into Colaba.
Yes.
And Old Woman's Island was just beyond Regal
Correct.
Cinema. And it's quite funny because no one really dared. Everyone left their jewelry at home because it was quite dangerous to go to the Agyari. And now you find that the richest people of Bombay are at that Agyari. So, of course, Bombay was Colaba and Old Woman's Island. And then, of course, it was reclaimed all over. But I think the most iconic building there is the Taj Mahal, which is the Indo-Saracenic architecture. I think that's one of my favorites. Royal Alfred Sailors Club is my second favorite on
the
that.
The Yacht Club is also
area.
there, yes.
And the Yacht Club also. So we're actually tracking the route, that people actually use to enter the fort.
Yes.
So we call that Apollo Bandar.
Yes, which is the Apollo Gate actually, one of the gates.
Absolutely. And Apollo Gate was the one that was in Kalagoda. Now what we call Kalagoda. So people used to actually disembark at the Gateway of India and then walk towards the Yacht Club, then Raj Mahal, then the Royal Alfred Sailors Club.
Yes.
And then walk from the rear side into the St. Peter's and then walk into the Kalagoda area.
Yes.
So if you see where Rhythm House was, on the opposite end of Rhythm House, that's where Apollo Gate was. That was the third gate. And still the South Bombay gate.
Correct.
Of Bombay. And everyone used to actually enter from that gate and then come into Kalagoda.
And Kalagoda also has some beautiful architecture.
Yeah. So that's, I think, where, if you ask me where Bombay's architecture started off, and I always say that on our walks as well, is if the genesis of architecture begins at Kalagoda.
Kalagoda, Watson Hotel.
Watson Hotel. But in a sense, when Henry Bartle Frere came and he said that we want to build these mighty buildings and make Bombay one of the finest cities in the world, he actually sat down and listed 14 or 20 buildings and saying that this is what we need to make a city.
Yes.
And one of those 14 buildings will be the ones that you see. I mean, the list of 14 buildings is what you see in and around Kalagoda, which includes the university building. You like the Watson Hotel. I love the David Sassoon Library.
Oh, I love the David Sassoon Library. Yes.
And in between stands one of the most beautiful buildings, which is the Army and Navy building.
Yes.
What I love about Kalagoda's architecture is that it's truly eclectic. You can start, where the Elphinstone College is.
Yes.
And that's Venetian Gothic. Then you come to the David Sassoon Library, which is again Neo-Gothic. Then you come to the Army and Navy building, that white
one,
building.
Yes.
That is Neoclassical. And then you have a cast iron building, which is, of course, the Watson Hotel. Then you go further, again, there's Gothic, Victorian Gothic, which is, of course, in the ensemble, which is the university building and the Raja Baidas. You walk a little ahead, you have a lot of vernacular. And then you have a lot of Edwardian beyond that.
What about the buildings like Churchgate, the old Churchgate building?
Yes.
Or the High Court, or
Yes.
the institute science. When did these buildings come up?
So all of them were around the same time. So Henry Bartle Frere started off and said that, we want to build these buildings. And around the 1870s was when he started off. And it took about 35 years for his vision to be complete. So we're looking at around till the early 1900s that all these buildings came up together. And if you see the old Churchgate building, which you're saying is the BB&CI.
Yes.
And that BB&CI is a lovely building.
Beautiful building.
And that is a truly Indo-Saracenic building. And, the best difference between a Gothic and a Indo-Saracenic building is that every Gothic building will end in a turret. If you've seen Harry Potter or if you've seen Game of Thrones, all of those buildings, all those palaces will end in a triangle, in a turret.
Which is what VT Station has.
VT Station has. While the Indo-Saracenic will all end in domes. So the turrets are replaced by smaller domes. And that's the beauty of it, is that when you stand at Oval Maidan, everyone talks about the Art Deco ensemble on one side and the Neo-Gothic on the other. But the best part is that there is two other sides. One side has the beautiful Indo-Saracenic BB&CI, which has all these domes, which none of the Neo-Gothic buildings have. So, it's not only the two sides of the oval, it's also the third. And of course, the fourth has a modern view to it, where there's Taj Wellington Mews, etc.
Correct.
But otherwise, the BB&CI actually stands out because that's the most beautiful Indo-Saracenic building. My favorite spot in Bombay is the center of Oval Maidan. So on one side is the Art Deco, and the other side is the Neo-Gothic buildings. But the most beautiful part is that BB&CI building.
Oh yes,
also.
That's lovely. And when it's lit up for major occasions, just grand. It's
fantastic.
Beautiful.
It's fantastic. And that, of course, incidentally, is also Churchgate Street.
Yes.
That's where everyone used to actually enter
one of the gates.
One of the gates where Flora Fountain is. And that was where the second gate was, which was the Church Gate, because that, of course, led to the St. Thomas Cathedral.
St. Thomas Cathedral. Third was
the
Bora Bazaar, that gate over there.
That was the Bazaar Gate, which was where
yes.
Bora Bazaar was.
Fascinating. The gate story is fascinating, but the way you described architecture and the changes, marvelous.